Record.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will convene the agenda for Thursday, August 5th, and consider the matter that is scheduled for 1:30. And that is case number PL-CUP-21-0001. The applicant is Gig Harbor Homesites 2 LLC and Alan Axelrod. And the request is for a conditional use permit to allow expansion of the Haven of Rest Cemetery onto a 10-acre parcel located immediately north of the existing cemetery site. The parcel is located at 8917 SR 16 within the city of Gig Harbor. My name is Steve Casso. I'm the City of Gig Harbor hearings examiner. I am an attorney in the private practice of law with the firm of McCarthy and Casso that is located at 902 South 10th in Tacoma. So if anyone knows of a reason why I should not hear the matter, please indicate. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and proceed. The way we'll proceed then this afternoon is we will first hear a presentation of the city staff report by Kimberly Mahoney. Following that, we will hear a testimony from the applicant and those that wish to speak in favor of the request, and then testimony from anyone who wishes to speak in opposition or has questions or concerns. Following conclusion of the hearing this afternoon, I will take the matter under advisement and will issue a written decision. That decision will be transmitted to the owner applicant and the applicant's representative as shown on the front pages of the staff report, as well as to the city. And if you're not listed there and you'd like to receive a copy, or if you need a copy of the decision mailed elsewhere, just indicate that to staff before we conclude the hearing this afternoon. When it is your turn to testify, I will first have to swear you in as a witness, as we are required to take all testimony under oath in these quasi-judicial proceedings. So at this time then, Ms. Mahoney, do you want to raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
I swear.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Examiner. We are here today for your consideration of a decision on the proposed Haven of Rest Cemetery expansion. The Haven of Rest Cemetery is an existing operation in Gig Harbor, and the applicant proposes to expand its operation to the parcel immediately north of the existing cemetery. The subject site is a 10.07 acre parcel in the city's R2 medium density residential zoning district, wherein a cemetery is a conditionally permissible use of land. This proposal is encompassed in a conditional use permit application only. It's important to note that the applicant is only requesting the examiner's decision on the ability to use the subject site for the cemetery's expansion, but has not yet applied for the actual development of the site. As such, analysis of the applicant's appropriate access, circulation, stormwater management, landscaping, and critical area protection, to name a few components of development review, has not been conducted and will be completed upon the applicant's submittal of a site plan review application. Should the examiner approve the requested conditional use permit, the applicant will be required to submit appropriate development permit applications with the city of Gig Harbor prior to any work on site. A condition of approval has been recommended by staff in section 10 of the staff report to this end. Conditional use permit applications are subject to the 4 approval criteria set forth in Gig Harbor Municipal Code section 17.64.040. Staff has analyzed these criteria in section 8 of the staff report prepared for this hearing. In sum, staff finds that the cemetery use is specified by Title 17 of the Gig Harbor Municipal Code as being conditionally permitted in the R2 zone, and that the cemetery is consistent with the purpose of the R2 zone, which is to allow for moderate land use, which transitions and separates high-density residential development from lower-density residential areas. To the south of the existing cemetery exists a lower-density residential area. The existing cemetery and its proposed expansion to the north further buffers this area from areas further to the north, which do permissibly allow for higher-density residential development. The approval of the requested conditional use permit will serve no detriment to public health, safety, comfort, convenience, or general welfare, nor will it adversely affect the established character of the surrounding neighborhood. particularly as the site is largely surrounded by the Haven of Rest Cemetery and is otherwise surrounded by vacant parcels in the same R2 zone, one developed parcel in the city's employment district, and to the east is bordered by the Cushman Trail. The applicant also acknowledges the generally quiet operation of a cemetery and the lack of grading and pollution generating activity associated with the cemetery's operation. Upon its application for development permits, staff will review the application and ensure that public facilities and street capacities can serve the cemetery's use without placing an undue burden on these facilities, or will otherwise require mitigation for impacts. Finally, the 10-acre site is of sufficient size to accommodate the required yards, parking, landscaping, and other features required of Gig Harbor Municipal Code Title 17 should the applicant appropriately design its site consistent with staff's review of a future site plan review application. The imposition of condition number 1 recommended by staff in the staff report will ensure the site's design is consistent with these requirements. Having analyzed the applicant's submittal materials against the approval criteria for a conditional use permit application, staff concludes that the applicant has demonstrated consistency with the approval criteria and recommends the hearing examiner approve the application. Should the examiner decide to approve the requested conditional use permit, staff recommends the imposition of the conditions included in section 10 of the staff report. The proposed conditional use permit is categorically exempt from a SEPA threshold determination. This public hearing and its application were appropriately noticed to the public. No comments have been submitted to staff. This concludes my introduction of the Haven of Rest Cemetery expansion. I welcome any questions you may have, Mr. Examiner.
Okay, so normally a conditional use permit is one of those uses that is allowed under the zone, but it requires requires or authorizes staff to impose conditions that would mitigate the impacts of that permit on the surrounding area. And so I guess what I'm hearing you say is that while we don't have a specific use of the site other than for cemetery purposes, and what I'm hearing you saying is that you believe that all of this, that the imposition of the city development codes will ensure that this conditional use permit is consistent and compatible with the abutting parcels or parcels in the adjacent area.
That's exactly right, Mr. Examiner. We'll review the site plan review in addition to our Public Works Department for appropriate consistent development proposal with all applicable public works standards and municipal code standards. And that will ensure the appropriate application of the conditionally allowed use.
Okay. Thank you. Does the city have anything further that it wants to present?
Only, Mr. Examiner, that I did touch base with my applicants today, ensure they have read the staff report and the conditions of approval that were recommended by staff, and ensured that they had no questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you. We will now hear testimony from and on behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Examiner, this is Jamie Schroeder with CPH Consultants.
Yeah, can you raise your right hand for me first,
Sure.
please? Here, do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case down hearing shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And if you could state your name for me again and who you're with there.
My name is Jamie Schroeder, and I'm with CPH Consultants.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Maybe you could turn up your microphone a little bit or something.
Let me try to get closer.
Yeah, no, much better, much better. Yeah, go ahead and start again, please.
Again, my name is Jamie Schroeder with CPH Consultants. We are a civil engineering planning group, and we are working with the applicant on the application. I'll be speaking on behalf of them, but we also have other members of the team if there's other questions. In general, I just want to thank the staff for their hard work and complete staff reports that they put together. We do not have any further comments on the findings or the recommendations. And we are agreeable to the conditions of approval that they have noted in the report. I guess I just want to point out we have Alan Axelrod, who is the applicant, who is part of the meeting here, Scott Cameron, who is the real estate agent, and as well as representative, and Russ Weeks, who's from Haven of the Rest Cemetery, who will be the ultimate user and developer of the site. So we don't have anything further to add to the staff report, and we are agreeable to all the conditions. I guess we would just open it up. If you have any questions or anyone has any questions later, we can respond to those.
Do you, Mr. Strutter, Ms. Mahoney indicated you'd had an opportunity to review the entire staff report, and I wondered if you had any questions or concerns about anything in the staff report itself, in addition to the conditions, or is everything pretty well set forth accurately in there?
We do not have any other questions. The intent from our standpoint for this application was to get the conditional use approved as the cemetery. The Exhibit B, which is the site plan that was included, is just a really conceptual level of where burials and so on general roads may lay out, but we weren't getting into the details of that because they haven't completed specific detailed design of what they want to do. So we want to leave it open-ended in terms of they can work out those details with the city. But in terms of the recommendations and the conditions, we understand them and are good with those.
Do you have any idea what your timetable is for submitting development applications for the site?
I believe I'll pass off to Russ. Is probably the best person to answer that. I don't know specific timetables. He may be able to answer that for you.
Okay.
I do not have a specific.
Let me get you to raise your right hand there first, Mr. Weeks. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
I do not have any specific timetables. We would like to start planning soon, because I know it takes some time to work back and forth to make sure that everything works within the city codes, and it just takes some time for us to get going and get started on the planning. So we'd like to start the process soon, but I don't have a specific timeline.
Ms. Mahoney, does the city code set forth any requirements for exercising a conditional use permit once it's approved? In other words, is there any kind of statute of limitations or anything for expiration of a conditional use permit if it's not exercised in a certain period?
Yes, Mr. Examiner, that period is 3 years.
3 years?
Yes, and that is included in the last 1 or 2 pages of the staff report.
And is that 3 years then for a submittal of applications? Or?
Correct, Mr. Examiner. It doesn't need to be built out by then, but for the submittal of the applications.
Okay. Is that 3-year period going to be sufficient for you, Mr. Weeks?
I believe so. If it's possible to be extended, I'd love that. But I would hope that we would be started and using that property prior to that time period.
Does the code contain any provisions for extending the 3-year period?
Yes, Mr. Examiner, there's the opportunity for the Community Development Director to offer one-year extension.
Okay. So then that would give you, assuming approval by the Development Director, that would give you 4 years then, Mr. Weeks.
I'm sure that we could submit applications prior to that time period.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else wish to speak in this matter? Ms. Mahoney, do you have anything further?
No, Mr. Examiner.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Axelrod, you want to raise your right hand? I need you to raise your right. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
I have nothing further to add about the staff report or the comments made here today. Really, I'm just here to thank the staff and Ms. Mahoney for the work that they've done to look at this situation and to write the positive report that we're now discussing. So really, it's just my thanks to staff and to you and to the other parties in the city who've assisted us in moving this along. And we're hopeful that the CUP will be allowed and accepted, and so that Mr. Weeks can proceed on the development of the extension of his cemetery.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, well, I will go ahead then and close the record on this matter and take the matter under advisement, and we'll proceed to issue a written decision. And once again, that will be transmitted to the city as well as to the owner applicant at the Seattle address and to the real estate company at the Bellevue address. And if you need a decision mailed elsewhere, or if you want a decision mailed specifically to you, please let the staff know. I noticed that Mr. Weeks, you're not on the front page of the staff report there, so you might want to give us your mailing address, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the decision as well. So thank you very much for participating this afternoon, and we are now adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.